Only a few months after Overwatch 2's big drama with bundles and the legality and morality of locking individual items behind bundles, favour announced that they are changing the way we're able to buy DLCs for DBD, with some DLCs no longer being available for purchase alone and instead being locked behind bundles. A grand total of 12 DLCs will now be locked behind the following 3 bundles. The Maddening Darkness pack with Hag, Clown, Doctor and Spirit. The Old Wounds pack with Legion, Oni, Plague and Deathslinger. And the Macabre Tales pack with Blight, Trickster, Twins and Michaela. All 3 of these packs come in at the same price of $19.99 each. Favour have said that they made the decision to lock DLCs behind bundles to, and I quote, provide a more convenient and streamlined purchasing experience for players moving forward, which I strongly disagree with. There's nothing more streamlined than the simple process of thinking, I want the Doctor, so I will go to the Doctor and click buy. Instead, players will now have to think, I want the Doctor, but I can't buy him. My only option is one of these 3 bundles, but which one is he in? Okay, let me Google which bundle the Doctor's in. Okay, Maddening Darkness pack, so I have to buy that one, which truthfully makes things significantly less streamlined. Of course, there is still possibility for redemption via saving money through these bundles. If the price is low enough, then it's a net win for the players. They said, quote, buying a pack is still a more economical option than buying all 4 individual DLCs since you get all the additional outfits and exclusive items for a fraction of the price, which is kind of true. The $19.99 price tag is cheaper than the $27.96 it would cost to buy them all individually, but it does lock you into buying other characters that you may not want. For instance, take the Maddening Darkness pack. There's a decent chance that you'd want the Doctor and Spirit DLCs, but I'd imagine most people don't really want the Hag nor Clown nowadays. And even if Kate's perks make the Clown's chapter worthwhile, chances are most people won't want Hag nor Ace at all, so I do think keeping the chapters separate would be better. That being said, the DLCs will still be available in-game through iridescent shards, and their shard costs will even be reduced once the bundles go live. So I'd say just earn them in-game unless you want all 4 DLCs within a certain bundle. But speaking of DLCs being removed, let's talk about DBD's removed free DLC access. By now I'm sure you're all used to $5 to $10 DLCs every few months alongside battle passes and potentially even skins trying to squeeze more and more money out of you. Of course, the discussion of DBD's current monetization is a huge can of worms to open. Yes, battle passes and microtransactions are bad, but comparing DBD's battle pass to other battle passes shows that DBD's is often much fairer than the competition, etc, etc. But DBD actually used to have some really unique approaches to monetization which have since been outright removed from the game. I mean, what grabs your attention more than free DLC? The answer? Free licensed DLC, and you better believe we used to have it. If we roll back the clock to a time before battle passes and endless monetization, back when DBD was just a small game with only 3 killers being the Trapper, the Wraith and the Hillbilly, we'd also find ourselves a different behaviour too, a significantly smaller team with much less funds and a game where they don't know if it will see long-lasting success or not, alongside a different mindset. The same team and mindset that expected Dead by Daylight to be a stealth game had finally released a game they've been passionately working on for all this time, and they'd seen some initial popularity from huge YouTubers like KSI and the Sidemen, but needed a way to maintain this interest. And what would be better than Dead by Daylight? More Dead by Daylight, more killers, more survivors, more perks, more maps, more fun. And with that comes DBD's first ever DLC called Chapter 1 The Last Breath, featuring Nia Carlson, the nurse, their respective perks, and a whole new map, Crota's Pren Asylum. Now, the nurse's state of balance compared to nowadays was incredibly different, including but not limited to faster movement speed and 3 blinks base kit, but in an incredible difference to modern day DBD, this DLC was completely free for everyone from the moment it dropped. But while much appreciated, this generosity couldn't last forever, and it wouldn't be much longer until DBD had its first microtransactions added into the game, the 80s suitcase. A set of skins for every survivor in the game at that point for $3.99, which was fairly standard in the games industry by that point in time. That being said, this doesn't mark the end of DBD's history with free DLCs. The next full chapter wouldn't be until the 25th of October 2016, with the most important update in DBD's history, Halloween. If it wasn't for Behaviour being able to secure this Halloween crossover so early on in the game's lifespan, I have no doubt that not a single one of us would still be playing this game today. Having such a huge license attached to DBD's name, a license which hadn't really been explored in video games before, was absolutely game-changing and would solidify DBD's popularity, not to mention the huge effect Decisive Strike would have on the game. That being said, the Halloween chapter was of course licensed, which meant that there would be no possibility of releasing it for free, whether they wanted to or not. Or was there? The final free DLC wouldn't be until Chapter 5 on the 25th of July 2017, A Lullaby for the Dark, featuring the Huntress, which was originally going to be paid just like the Hag, Doctor and Myers, but as a reward for the community completing every single challenge for the 1-year anniversary, the devs just made the entire chapter completely free. The challenges were nice and easy too. Simple things like break 1 million pallets, which took approximately 3 matches back then, or unhook survivors 250,000 times. While most people would think that's where the free DLC story ends, that's actually not the case at all, because for years after this, every single DLC killer would be completely free to play to all players, including licensed killers. And no, I'm not talking about that time Behaviour leaked their own private dev version of the game which grants you every character. What I'm talking about was a fully intentional feature added to the game called Splinters. These splinters were a family of offerings available on every single killer that, when equipped, would straight up swap your character into whichever one the offering says. There were 6 splinter offerings in total, which were Black Splinter, which let you play as Michael Myers, Muddy Splinter, which let you play as the Hag, Shock Splinter for the Doctor, Bone Splinter for Bubba, Glass Splinter for the Pig, and Smoking Splinter for Freddy. And every single one of these offerings could be earned on every single killer in the game, allowing completely free-to-play users to experience every paid DLC without ever purchasing a single one, including the licensed ones, which is something we don't have a way of doing even today. The offerings really were as simple as that. Take this real example of myself 6 years ago. The only DLC killer I had was Myers, but I really wanted to give Doctor a go. So after leveling up enough times, I eventually stumbled upon the Shock Splinter, which I promptly set as my offering on Myers, loaded into a match, and boom, I was playing the Doctor. There was one not so small caveat though. Upon loading into a match with a Splinter, you would unequip every single perk and add-on, going in completely bare bones. With this occurring in olden DBD times, you know, Turbo Decisive Strike, Turbo Dead Hard, 35 pallets, infinite loops, insta blinds, brutal strength, enduring and ruin meta, you can already see where this is going. So after playing my match as a perkless, add-onless, pre-rework Doctor, who was weak even in the best of times, I promptly decided I would not be spending my hard-earned money on him, which is what leads us into the downfall of these potentially amazing offerings. Playing against survivors who are fully kitted out while playing a killer with no perks or add-ons would paint the DLC killers in a particularly bad light. Not to mention, you'd be dramatically less experienced with the killer too. It just meant your first impressions with a splintered character would likely be awful, which could lose Behaviour the sale. Spawning in without add-ons made perfect sense. Since the offerings would be equipped on different characters, you'd have no way of selecting Doctor's add-ons if you're on Myers, and I'm not sure J. Myers Memorial would be helping the Doctor out much. But the perks, however, those are seriously important, and I don't see any reason why they couldn't carry over. Despite being at a severe disadvantage when playing as a splintered killer, they were still a really good experience overall, as it did tend to serve as a try before you buy mechanic, which would either save you from wasting your money on a character character that didn't turn out as fun as you wanted, or would be enough to convince you to buy said characters for good. But the best part about them, in my opinion, is just how unique they were. It makes me think of some sort of old school Pokemon rumor, like, oh, first you gotta play however many hours and then farm up your blood points, dump them all into one character, and then after enough levels, you'll get this weird offering that transforms your killer into a DLC killer for free, but it disables all your perks. You know, it just makes the game feel much more unique and less sterile than most games today. Splinters remained a part of DBD for many years, but likely due to giving people bad first impressions, Behaviour eventually decided that Splinters had to go. Alongside the release of a new DLC, Splinters would find themselves removed from DBD entirely. But place your bets as to which killer would be the one to cost us our free DLC offerings. None other than the Deathslinger. Of course it'd be the Deathslinger. That killer really has been making enemies of the community since day one. So in patch 3.6.0 on the 9th of March 2020, with the release of the Deathslinger, every single Splinter offering would be removed from the game forever. Of course, nowadays we can earn unlicensed DLCs through iridescent shards, but for anything licensed, you have no choice but to hand over your money and buy them outright. I would honestly love to see Splinters come back to modern DBD. If they were so worried about them leaving bad impressions, then they can earn bonus points by letting the perks carry over too. But I do wonder if some of the newer licenses they've acquired would actually allow for Behaviour to do that. Of course, everything released before Deathslinger clearly could, as they've done it before, but there would have had to be some mention of that in the contract beforehand, and since these offerings aren't in the game anymore, I wonder if they're still mentioned on newer contracts.